Bears training camp is finally here. Let's break down our top 5 storylines next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are out there on YouTube. And also make sure to rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Like I said, it is training camp season, and we're going to have you covered. Now, today's show, this show right now, we won't necessarily go through all the news currently, but I'll be going through that a little bit later on, so make sure to stay tuned for that episode. But today, I have not gone through my top 5 camp storylines, so I want to go through that, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about some of the other things that are kind of coming out of training camp. I'll probably let some of that stuff slip too, but don't worry. We'll have you covered with an episode that should probably drop by the end of today, so stay tuned for that. So, like we said, training camp is underway. The first main practice was today, and tomorrow on Thursday, they're going to have their first publicly available training camp. So I'll have you covered on all that and a lot of the other details about those specific training camps. So, let's get into the main things. I want to talk about some of the free agency additions because I have not talked about that yet. And then we'll go straight into the storylines to just kind of cover some of the stuff that I'll be looking out for this training camp. So first off, with the free agent ads, there was a couple additions that the Bears did make. So we did a couple little activities over the past couple of days. So obviously we signed Luther Burden, Nazi Trapillo, and Shamar Turner. We also placed Jalen Johnson, Case Keenum, Jade Walker, and Ian Wheeler all on the active non-football injury list, with all of them being activated except for Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson, more news is coming out that he's probably going to miss about 3 weeks. So we're going to see him a little bit later on in training camp. But I guess some of my concerns is this is something that we kind of saw a little bit with Montez Sweat. Now, I can't remember if he was exactly on the NFI list, but really we saw one of our star players just be banged up. And I think that's where myself and others were getting a little bit like, okay, how healthy is he going to be when he kind of trots out there? Because cornerback is a very difficult position to come back from if you're having a leg injury. And also Jalen Johnson, we talked about this with the cornerback episode. We kind of forgot that he was always considered an injury risk. So it's always been his shoulder. This is more leg injury, but let's wait and see just what's going to be going on with him. But like I said, Keenum, Wheeler, Walker, all of those ended up getting activated. Next, we ended up waiving Alex Cook, defensive back, and defensive end, Jeremy Robinson. And instead of those two, we ended up signing defensive back Trey Flowers, who he's really just been a career journeyman at the cornerback position, 6'3", 200 pounds, 30 years old. He's kind of been a career backup. Like I said, as a backup, you don't mind that, but he's just going to add a little bit more competition to this cornerback room. Yet again, do not expect him to be a starter, but someone that at least kind of adds a little bit of depth. And also you can clearly see that what the Bears want out of the cornerback room is size. with who they got with Zay Frazier and now with Trey Flowers, size is a big thing that they want out of this defense. And then next, they got a defensive end, which we'll be talking about next. Let me just pull up the pronunciation. So the Bears listed him as a linebacker, but he does play defensive line. He's not necessarily a linebacker at all, especially with them weighing in at a whopping 289 pounds. But his name, Tano Passanio. I had to make sure to bring up the pronunciation out there just to get the name right. But he was someone that they brought in. He has a lot of familiarity with the Dennis Allen system, spending the last handful of years over at New Orleans. Now, he's not been a starter by any means, and I don't expect him to be somebody that is absolutely dominant, but he's someone that you bring in that has familiarity in the system. And like what we'll be talking about, the defensive end spot is something we have to fill out, something that we have to just bolster a lot more, like we talked about with the last episode, because this is still a concern. Do I think this makes everything better? No, but I think that adding a veteran, he's 31 years old this year. I think it at least adds some depth. He is coming off of his worst graded season last year, according to PFF, at a 29.4. But to me, add more defensive ends. I like the signing because I just want bodies at the defensive end spot. I still am concerned about what's going to happen. Do I think he can give you okay play? Yes, I do. But I like, that's where I like the signing, but I still feel like we need to add more at that defensive end spot. Other little free agency pieces as well. DJ Chark had the wide receiver, formerly of the Detroit Lions, had a workout with the Chicago Bears. And the reason why I want to just bring this up was this was someone that we talked about in the offseason as someone that could be an easy signing, someone that knows the Ben Johnson system, and someone who is also a speedster and that can kind of take the top off the defense. Now, I still like our depth at wide receiver. My personal take is, you kind of bring in people to have these, just to kind of try them out. Maybe they do actually want some depth, but to me, it's nice to bring in people so that you know where they're at health-wise, so that down the road, if someone's banged up or Luther Burton's banged up, you can bring in a DJ Chark just to add in a little bit of extra depth. So now let's finally get into the actual storylines, going from 5 to 1. So I did actually rank this. Normally I don't rank a lot of these, but the top storylines going into training camp that we have to be paying attention to, and then we'll probably hear the most about. Now, for 5, there's a lot of ones that were out there, but my number 5 storyline is the running back position. And the biggest reason, we still don't really know who, first off, the number 2 running back is. And like we've talked about with this position, it's not just the number 2 running back. It's all the feelings, like I know I've said, where Ben Johnson wanted to get rid of DeAndre Swift. The Bears were actively trying to get Genty, actively trying to get Travion Henderson, who runs like DeAndre Swift. So them trying to add another running back, we saw that. And then the rumors about them potentially trying to go after a Nick Chubb, those were speculation because we heard from someone that, hey, someone in the NFC North was looking at Nick Chubb. People were saying, well, maybe that's the Bears. And then you have Kyle Monangai come in, and then you kind of stop hearing that. Then Nick Chubb gets signed elsewhere. With this running back position, though, is it going to be Roschon Johnson? Can he be healthy? Now, are they fine with DeAndre Swift as the number 1 running back? To me, my whole take on this is you can do a lot worse than DeAndre Swift as your running back. You can still have very good production. He still he's getting paid a lot, yes, but he can hold you over for a year. You don't have to get rid of him or anything like that. That's how I kind of feel with DeAndre Swift. I still think he's going to have a good season if he is, in fact, that lead running back. I still think that he's able to do stuff like that because we already saw him have production in a Ben Johnson system. I think to me, it's the depth of this running back position as well. If they don't believe Roschon's the guy, or if Kyle Monangai, someone who I really, really like, there's still questions about his overall athleticism if it is in fact NFL ready. So that's still one of the big questions about his speed and overall quickness. So who could they add in? Now, when you look at the free agent pool, it's kind of dried up. You're talking about Jamal Williams, Gus Edwards, Jeff Wilson, right? Not a lot of names that jump out on you. Deontay Foreman, he had a severe injury, maybe he can come back, right? There's just a lot of these backs don't really scream as someone that is kind of like an upgrade. And that's where, to me, with the free agent pool, I just don't see it. And not saying I would do this, yes or no, but I still feel like if the Bears were to do something at this running back position at this current point, I could see them trading for someone. Now, not saying I would do this, but we have seen Ryan Poles do this consistently, where he'll trade away, like right before the start of the season, he'll trade away a 5th rounder, he'll trade away a 4th rounder, a 6th rounder, and just get someone. Now, I was looking out there and just kind of seeing some of the news, some of the potential information on what running backs might actually be available via trade, who might be kind of on the chopping block. Now, there's a couple that are out there. Travis Etienne out of the Jags is someone that pops up a lot. I would not be a big fan of that. I think Etienne I never really liked Travis. I liked Trevor Etienne, crazy enough, the one out of Georgia, more than Travis Etienne, the one that's currently with the Jags. I just never really saw it with him. I thought that he was more of a pass catcher. But it sounds like he's going to be potentially available with the emergence of Tank Bigsby. Breece Hall, I know that there was rumors about that. All intentions look like, it seems like the Jets are re-signing their guys, re-signing Breece Hall. That's what it looks like is going to happen. Other people too, Zach Moss, Dameon Pierce are other people that could be on the chopping block that the Bears might be looking out for. But one that I think if the Bears want to try and hit a home run and they want to try and truly say, hey, DeAndre Swift, if they really felt like DeAndre Swift wasn't going to cut it, Kenneth Walker would be one of the people that kind of stands out. They already have Zach Charbonnet and some pretty good depth at that position, and he's going into a contract year, and the Seahawks might be trying to offload him. If they were to trade for one, I think that Kenneth Walker could be a very good option. And you look at like all the stats. I won't bore you with all the stats. All that you need to know is he had the third highest elusive rating last season. Yes, he averaged 3.7 yards a carry, but the guy breaks tackles like crazy. And here I have other stats. His .42 avoided tackles per attempt last season were the most in PFF's 19 years of statistics for all running backs. So if you want someone that breaks tackles and does his own thing, that is what Kenneth Walker does. Also excels more in the zone game. He averaged a 4.4 yards per carry last season on zone carries, and then 4.0 in gap. So my guess is that probably had some goal line carries that then subtracted some of those. But really, to me, if they're going to trade for someone and they feel like they need a starter, that's the only guy you go after. That's my opinion, right? Because I think that he's the only one that I feel the best about that could be potentially available. But really, besides the whole addition or other things like that, it is going to be a conversation of who is going to be that lead, or who is going to be the backup running back. We already know Swift is going to be the lead. It's the backup is going to be the other question, because Ben Johnson loves to have that two-headed monster at running back. So who are going to be the two running backs that they lean on this season? So next, running back. Now let's flip over to defensive ends, because at the defensive end position, we already talked about it. We just signed Passanio as a defensive end. I still feel like we need to add more. And we talked about this last episode. I also, moved my face right over the Von Miller graphic for those that were out there. I recorded, just full transparency, I recorded the show, the defensive end show, before Von Miller got signed. And I was like, what? I don't really talk about Von Miller too much with that. But still, everything that we talked about with that last episode still echoes true to today. I still don't feel like Jadeveon Clowney would lower his price tag enough for where the Bears would want to sign. I still hope Zadarius Smith is the guy, but I still am curious about a Matthew Judon. And the insider, Albert Breer, I believe it was, posted about potentially Matt Judon to the Bears, or there might be some interest. Now, it's not him reporting that the Bears have crazy interest in Matthew Judon and Matthew Judon's going to the Bears, but they're just talking about, hey, look at this defensive end position as something that could be added to. I really hope that they're not done. I don't expect them to be done at adding at this position, but look at the free agent pool. James Houston, Tyus Bowser, Carl Lawson, Jerry Hughes, DeMarcus Walker. Not a great slew of defensive ends that are out there. And I do have to talk about at least the trades. Kayvon Thibodeau and Trey Hendrickson have been like the two hot names of like, who could you potentially trade for? I still highly doubt that those are actually going to work, just because you look at their salary, not just this year, but the following season. They're no longer the number one in cap space going into next year. They're now pressed for cap every single year going out. So that's why I still don't expect those to work out, even though Trey Hendrickson is very, very not happy with his situation. The only other person that I want to at least just say, keep an eye out for, is Peyton Turner with the Cowboys, formerly of the Saints. There's some rumors about, just what's happening. Like, yet again, I was kind of going around just to see who might be someone that's traded or on the chopping block. He's a name to watch out for, someone who's played under Dennis Allen and large defensive end that they drafted in the first round. Yet again, not someone who's a great starter, but someone that can add some additional depth to this defensive end room. And maybe he gets cut as we get farther along in the preseason. But also, too, overall from our team with the defensive end storylines, look to see if some of our backups make any headlines like a Dominique Robinson, who's starting to look pretty good, and Austin Booker as well. Two people that we need to keep eyes out for because we need someone, right? You cycle through these defensive ends like crazy. We need something of substance as at the defensive end spot. So next, my third storyline is something that we've already seen headlines for today on Wednesday with the first day of camp, and that's injuries. This is kind of a cop-out, so I didn't want to put it number 1. I didn't want to put it as number 5. Threw it right in the middle. Injuries are always a storyline. Injuries, whether we like it or not, we can't turn injuries off like in Madden. We have to live through them, and so now you have the Jalen Johnson stuff about him potentially being out for 3 weeks. And is that going to linger and go into this season? All things that we need to be on the lookout for. And then too, when you go on the offensive side of the football, we have Braxton Jones coming off an injury. He did practice today, so that was good. He false started on the first snap, but he did in fact practice today, and like we were kind of hoping for and expecting. But then also, Karana Magaji's always been banged up. You have Luther Burden, who just was a no-show today at training camp. These are all just questions that are out there. Also, Colson Loveland. Loveland was out there today as well. But all these injuries are something that always is inside of training camp and something that we always have to be on the lookout for. Who's out there? Who gets banged up? And then is there somebody that can fill in certain shoes? So, like I said, it's an unfortunate thing, but it always is some form of storyline. And actually, like the whole Luther Burden not being there is one of the biggest storylines that's happening because he just signed his deal. So why is he not there? Why is he a complete no-show is what a lot of people are saying. So next, now we're up to the top 2. And these top 2, some of you have probably been waiting for. Number 2, I have left tackle battle. That's my second storyline. Some of you might already know what the number 1's going to be. But the left tackle storyline is my number 2 biggest storyline that we're going to be tracking throughout training camp because it's an open competition. Ben Johnson has said it. When asked about it, like myself, I was kind of expecting him to say something about Braxton Jones being the veteran and having a leg up. He didn't. Ben Johnson said nothing about that. He said it's a competition between Ozzie, Braxton, and also Karana Magaji for that left tackle spot, which it should be. Now, Karana Magaji, he's in the competition, but I don't really expect much out of that, right? Still seems like Ozzie has been playing better than Karan. Doesn't mean that you can just write him off. Maybe he can then be more of that swing tackle, but still it does feel like it's going to be Braxton Jones versus Ozzie Trapillo at that left tackle spot. And today during practice, Braxton Jones might have been out there with some of the standard drills with the first team. Like I said, false started with the first snap, but then Ozzie Trapillo, when it was the full team scrimmages and things like that, we saw Ozzie out there, not Braxton Jones. So Braxton Jones was going out there against air, Ozzie Trapillo going out there against other people. And you kind of expect that though. You're not going to read too much into this about, hey, who was out there, right? This was Braxton's first practice in quite some time. So you expected Ozzie to be the first teamer just because him kind of getting up to it and it being a true competition. Now, my expectation, the way that Ben Johnson has been handling this, what he's been saying inside of press conferences, emphasizing the importance of pass protection, something that Braxton Jones, right? I know PFF grades are super high on the pass protection. I still don't think that Ben Johnson necessarily loves what he saw out of that with a lot of the pushback. So do I think Braxton's awful? No. But do I think that Ben probably wants to see Ozzie out there more than a Braxton Jones? Yeah, I think he really does. So yet again, rookie left tackle. So there's some issues that kind of come with that. Some expectation, the expectation needs to be lower. It's difficult for a tackle to be out there, but still that left tackle competition is going to be the biggest thing, right? Does Braxton get better, get healthier and look better in this system and finds a home in this system? Or is Ozzie kind of taking it by storm? Ozzie's got it, and the Bears can look to trade Braxton away to someone that needs a left tackle, someone that, right, can give you solid play at the left tackle position. So that's the next The next big storyline that we need to keep an eye out for, but last but not least, the number one storyline, I was debating on how to phrase this, but it really is just, how does this offense get installed? And really, you could just say this as Caleb Williams. I was literally going to put Caleb Williams. I just put the offense on my little thumbnails just because it's the offense. And how does Caleb grasp the offense, Ben Johnson's offense? And already today, first day, Ben Johnson yelling at the Bears and yelling at everyone that he literally had to stop the offense and say, like, you're done type of deal, because it wasn't up to his standard. Yet again, you have someone that's holding people accountable, holding people to a standard that, hey, this is not Matt Eberflus's practices where you can just kind of do whatever, have a good time, and not focus. This is about focus. This is about taking it seriously. And like what we've heard in some interviews, Ben Johnson telling Caleb, we're going to be winning dynasty. He's focused about dynasties. He's not focused on just winning seasons. He wants to build a culture. And this is what he's trying to do. The standard is the standard. And that's what you love with this. But really, the system. This is a huge year for Caleb. And I don't think enough people are talking about this. Caleb needs to buy into this system. Everyone needs to buy into this system, because this is what Ben wants to do. And we'll see how everyone is this season. And then if not, if like we talked about with Swift, if Swift is not the back for the system, sayonara, right? Everyone is kind of tied in. So how does this offense kind of gel all together with this brand new system? So this system also kind of encapsulates some of the wide receivers as well. That's why I didn't put the receivers or tight ends as someone that's out here, because to me, it's really more about how does this system get executed. I don't care who the number one wide receiver is. I don't care who the number one tight end is, right? That's fantasy football numbers. That's fantasy football questions. What I care about is this offense doing well. I care about this offense doing great things, right? And the standard for Caleb Williams, as they were talking about it, Caleb and Ben, the expectation is over 70% completion, which sounds crazy. Jared Goff did that. And keep in mind, Jared Goff was someone that was a throw-in for a trade that the Rams Sean McVay was like, I don't even want this guy anymore, right? We got to get this guy out of here. That's what they were able to do with Jared Goff. So Caleb, big expectations. That's going to be the number one thing. How is the offense looking? How is Caleb looking? How's everybody flowing? So if I missed something, let me know. If you agree with certain things, let me know down below in the comments. Like I said, I'll be trying to get another show out to really just kind of highlight what happened today at camp. So make sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell as well. And also make sure to download the podcast everywhere that you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a